He possessed everything most people could only dream of: private helicopters, custom-tailored suits, and a surname that commanded respect before he even entered a room. Yet beneath the gilded surface, he was disintegrating, stumbling through every challenge, suffocating in his own silence. Everyone had abandoned hope in him, his professors, his peers, even his mother, until one morning, in the most forgotten hallway of the academy, a custodian, a black woman whom no one truly acknowledged, spoke words that struck him more profoundly than any lecture ever could. He assumed she was merely maintaining the floors. He had no comprehension that she was about to sweep away everything he believed he understood. His name was Marcus Blackwood, the sole heir of Isabella Blackwood, a pharmaceutical magnate whose image adorned the covers of Fortune as predictably as clockwork. Marcus had been raised amid private helicopters, personal trainers, and birthday celebrations, featuring A-list entertainers as party guests. Yet despite his abundance, one element remained absent: meaning. At 18, Marcus attended Westfield Academy, one of Boston's most prestigious preparatory schools. Not through merit, but because the Blackwood name functioned like a master key. No entrance exams, no interviews, merely a bank transfer, and a legacy that spoke volumes. Within those granite corridors adorned with portraits of distinguished graduates, Marcus was notorious for three characteristics: his condescension, his designer wardrobe, and his scholastic disasters. His academic record was abysmal. Instructors promoted him through intimidation, not achievement. He remained indifferent. Eventually, he would inherit a dynasty. What could a transcript accomplish that his heritage couldn't? He ridiculed educators, dismissed classmates, and smirked through seminars as if they were trivial. When the academic advisor summoned him regarding his deteriorating performance, Marcus reclined casually and declared, "I could purchase this institution tomorrow. What difference would any grade make?" The statement circulated rapidly, yet nobody dared challenge him. Everyone, from administrators to students, walked carefully around Marcus. No one wished to jeopardize the Blackwood endowment. Home offered little solace. His mother, Isabella, was a woman of granite, calculating, ruthless, a self-made billionaire who rejected excuses, even from her own flesh and blood. "You're a disgrace," Isabella stated one evening following another complaint from school. "If you worked in my company, you'd be terminated immediately." Marcus folded his arms, eyes rolling dismissively. "But I'm not your subordinate. I'm your son. The world doesn't differentiate. Either you become somebody worthwhile, or you'll remain just another privileged child with a famous surname and no backbone. I won't enable your mediocrity." The silence that ensued felt devastating. Isabella wasn't making empty threats. Her resolve was absolute. The following morning, Marcus arrived at school maintaining his usual facade. He parked his gleaming Tesla, a recent birthday gift, in the faculty lot and strutted through the halls like a fashion model. Some students gazed enviously, others with revulsion. But one set of eyes observed differently. Nadine Washington, a black woman perhaps in her 50s, was cleaning the floor near the auxiliary entrance. Her posture remained dignified, her expression serene yet observant. Her uniform showed wear, but her presence commanded quiet respect. Marcus barely registered her existence. To him, she was invisible, merely the custodian. Background scenery, school pressures intensified, additional examinations, more failing marks. Then came the crushing blow. His mother froze his accounts, confiscated his vehicle, and mandated he use public transportation like everyone else. One particularly bitter morning, he passed Nadine in the corridor. For the first time, he noticed she was murmuring something while working. "The only genuine wisdom lies in recognizing your ignorance." Marcus halted. "What did you just say?" She looked up, calm, unintimidated. "Nothing you're prepared to comprehend, young man." He chuckled, but something in her words stung. She turned and departed, as if nothing had occurred. But Marcus couldn't stop thinking about her. Marcus climbed the academy steps with hands buried deep in his coat pockets. Everything felt transformed, colder, more constrained. Gone was the arrogant energy he once carried through the hallways. Now he moved quickly, quietly, attempting to ignore the weight of judgment. That morning brought his literature examination results, a plain manila envelope folded with cold finality. He opened it, expecting the usual disappointment, perhaps a charitable C or mercy grade. Grade 23/100. "Did you actually read the assigned material?" Scrawled at the bottom. Marcus stared at the paper, blinked, laughed nervously, looked around. Nobody was laughing with him. More tests followed that week. Mathematics 19%, history 27%, biology a devastating 0. It wasn't amusing anymore. The guidance counselor summoned him again. This time, her tone lacked gentleness. "Marcus, you're academically endangered. I'm not discussing behavior issues, I mean complete failure. Statistically, you're ranking at the very bottom of the entire senior class." "It's temporary," he shrugged. "I'll hire a tutor." "You've already had 4. They all resigned." That silenced him. Later, leaving her office, he slipped out through the rear exit to avoid being seen. There she was again, Nadine, scrubbing a beverage spill near the cafeteria. She noticed him and smiled politely. He stopped. "You mentioned Socrates last time." She stood slowly, wiped her hands on her apron. "And you remembered it?" "Yeah, I mean, it stayed with me. It's unusual for a custodian to quote ancient philosophers." She crossed her arms. "It's more unusual when someone with unlimited opportunities can't pass basic comprehension tests." He bit his lip. That stung. "You used to be an educator, didn't you?" "Not just philosophy. I taught many subjects before life derailed my plans." "Teach me then," he said. "Help me, please." She studied him carefully. "One condition, you abandon your name and your pride at that door. Begin from absolute 0. "Fine," he whispered. I can't continue failing." The next morning, Marcus arrived before sunrise. The academy building remained dormant, shrouded in mist and silence. He walked slowly through the back entrance, clutching the notebook she'd provided like something sacred. He found Nadine in the east wing, polishing the floor with slow, methodical circles. She wore simple earbuds and hummed something soft, perhaps a spiritual. Marcus stood awkwardly for a moment before stepping forward. "Hey, you said you'd teach me, remember?" Nadine paused, removed one earbud, and regarded him calmly. "I remember. I also mentioned it wouldn't be simple." "I don't care. I need this." "Then let's begin. But first, you should know my name properly. Nadine Washington." Marcus smiled faintly. "How long have you worked here?" 4 years. Before that, other schools. And before that—" She paused, then looked him directly in the eyes. "I was a university professor, English literature and philosophy." His eyes widened. "Why would you leave that for this?" Nadine folded her cloth slowly and answered without shame. "Sometimes life strips away everything you thought defined you and leaves you with only what you truly know. And I still know how to teach." Marcus nodded, overwhelmed. For the first time in his life, he witnessed someone genuinely strong without power. "So where do we start? I attempted reading last night. I don't even know how to begin." "That's the first truth," she said. "Pride deceives you into believing you already understand. But when you admit ignorance, that's when real learning begins." "I can read," Marcus muttered, slightly defensive. "I didn't say you couldn't. But I'm not discussing reading words. I'm discussing understanding what lies between the lines." She retrieved a weathered notebook from her bag. "Every morning before classes, you meet me here for 1 hour. And every evening after I finish cleaning, you sit and write. What you learned, what you felt, what you understood. No grades, just honesty." Marcus opened the notebook. Blank pages, an invitation, a challenge. "What if I fail again?" "Then you're finally doing it correctly." Days flowed into a strange, almost sacred rhythm. Marcus appeared early. Nadine greeted him without ceremony. Only questions. "What did this sentence make you feel? Why do you think this character remained silent? Can you describe what courage sounds like?" She didn't lecture. She provoked. Marcus began seeing differently. Books stopped feeling like chores. Sentences started resonating in his chest. He was learning to feel what words were trying to communicate. The notebook filled up, not with answers, but with thoughts, reflections, fears. He wrote about his mother, about pressure, about his constant anger at feeling empty inside. Nadine read every word. One evening, while he was writing in the cafeteria, 2 students walked by, laughing loudly. One of them, Derek, a star basketball player, nudged the other and said, "Look at little Blackwood now, writing love letters to the janitor." Marcus clenched his jaw, ready to react, but Nadine gently placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "You don't measure depth with a shallow ruler." He looked up at her. That single line cut deeper than any insult. Later that night, Marcus received a message from his mother. "They updated your academic record. One final warning. Improve immediately or you're finished. No trust fund, no apartment, nothing." Marcus stared at the message. He didn't reply, but for the first time he didn't feel afraid. He felt ready. Winter descended upon Boston, painting mornings in frost and silence. The academy hallways grew darker, quieter. But within Marcus, something brighter was growing, a kind of illumination he couldn't explain. One morning, Nadine met him in the abandoned library, the one nobody used anymore. She seated him, folded her hands over a book, and looked into his eyes. "It's time I tell you the one thing no one teaches." Marcus leaned forward. "I'm listening. The secret isn't in grades or textbooks or diplomas. The secret to real learning is transformation." She stood, pacing slowly. Most people learn to pass, to survive, to repeat what someone told them, and hope it's sufficient. But you don't change like that. You change when something inside you breaks and rebuilds stronger. Marcus remained silent. "You've started that process, but you need to understand what real learning feels like. It's messy, it's painful, it's personal, but it's real." She handed him a worn book with blue binding. "This saved me. The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. I read it when I lost everything. It brought me back." Marcus opened the cover. Handwritten notes filled the margins. "You're giving me this? I'm trusting you with it." "Why me?" Nadine sat back down. "Because when I saw you that day, you weren't arrogant. You were drowning, and something in you still wanted to live." Marcus clutched the book. "I'm going to read every word, then write something real. Not for me, for you." She stood to leave, picked up her supplies. Before exiting, she turned. "Next time someone asks how you're doing in school, don't say, 'I'm improving.' Say, 'I'm becoming someone.'" He sat there long after she left, the book in his hands, his chest heavy, not with fear but with purpose. He didn't want to just pass anymore. He wanted to matter. Something had shifted. You could see it in how Marcus walked. He no longer moved through the school like royalty, but like someone awake. He still wore the same clothes, but the weight behind his eyes was different. Not empty, focused. Most teachers didn't know what to make of it. The arrogant heir was now asking questions in class, writing complete essays, volunteering for group work. One day during history, he raised his hand. "Can we discuss how the textbook glosses over segregation like it was a footnote?" The room went silent. Even the teacher hesitated. "Where did you hear that?" he asked cautiously. "Du Bois, Baldwin, and a woman who knows how to teach." No one knew how to respond, but no one forgot that moment either. Marcus wasn't just changing himself, he was seeing others. The quiet girl who always sat alone in the cafeteria, the student who worked 2 jobs after school and still arrived on time, the teacher who delivered brilliant lectures but never received the respect she deserved. And he noticed something else. Once you learn to really see people, you start to realize how many go unseen. Each day with Nadine continued like clockwork. Mornings of profound questions, evenings of writing. He was building something, not just better grades, but a better self. The essays became more personal, more political, more powerful. Nadine corrected them with tough love, red ink, sharp notes. "Don't just say it, mean it. This sentence is pretty but hollow. Rewrite it with your soul." Marcus rewrote. Over and over. He stopped caring what people thought, not because of arrogance, but because he finally knew who he was becoming. One afternoon, Marcus brought another classmate to their study session, then another and another. Soon, the abandoned library transformed into a quiet revolution. Nadine taught circles of 5, 6, sometimes 10 students after hours. They weren't just learning to write, they were learning to think. Books once ignored became sacred texts. Quotes were shared like battle cries. If you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. Zora Neale Hurston. The function of freedom is to free someone else. Toni Morrison. These weren't just study sessions, they were awakenings, but not everyone was pleased. One rainy afternoon, Nadine was called into the office. "We've had complaints," the assistant principal said. "You're gathering students outside of official capacity." "I'm teaching. That's not your role." "Maybe it should be," Nadine replied. "Ms. Washington, we're going to have to ask you to stop." She left the office without another word, but her back was straighter than ever. The next morning, Marcus found out. "They're shutting you down." "They're scared," she said. "Of what?" "Of someone with no power teaching students how to have real power." "I'll speak out. I'll go public. Call my mother." "No," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Not yet. Your voice needs to stand on its own, not as a Blackwood, as Marcus." He nodded, teeth clenched, but something inside him said the storm was close. The change they'd created, it couldn't be hidden forever. It happened faster than expected. Marcus walked into the garage after school, drenched from rain, gripping a paper with a bold red A on it, the first he'd earned all year. The essay was titled, "The Courage to Unlearn." His teacher's comment, "You found your voice." He wanted to show his mother, not for approval, for truth. He found Isabella standing beside a brand new electric sports car, speaking to someone over Bluetooth about acquisitions. "Mother," Marcus said, holding the paper, "I want to show you something." Isabella took it with a blank face, scanned the title, raised an eyebrow. "Is this a joke?" "Marcus, this is a diary entry about feelings. This isn't academic, it's sentimental. It's about growth, about learning." Isabella tossed the paper onto the passenger seat. "Who taught you to write like this?" Marcus hesitated, then said it clearly. "Nadine, the custodian." Silence. Isabella stepped forward, voice low and full of venom. "You're telling me you're learning from someone who mops floors?" "She was a professor before. She's a failure now." Marcus's fists clenched. "She's done more for me than you ever have." "If you don't stop seeing her, you lose everything," Isabella warned. "Your money, your car, your name." "Then maybe I need to lose it all," Marcus said, trembling. "To figure out who I really am." Isabella stared at him coldly. "Pack your things. You're done." The next day, Nadine was gone, fired early, no warning, escorted to the gate, no chance to say goodbye. Marcus searched the halls. Empty. Her cart, her coat, all gone. He felt like he couldn't breathe. His grades started slipping again, not because he didn't know the material, but because his fire was extinguished. He walked like a ghost. The library was empty now. Then came the final blow, a bulletin board announcement. End-of-year speech contest. Topic: What it means to win in life. Marcus stared at the paper, then went home and wrote all night. Not for credit, not for a grade. For her. The announcement was posted in bold letters at the academy entrance. Senior speech contest. Topic: What it means to win in life. Open to families and the community. It was the final assignment of the year, and the stakes were high. Scholarships, university recommendations, and public recognition. For most students, it was just another hoop to jump through. But for Marcus, it was something else. It was war. The night of the speech contest arrived. The auditorium was packed. Parents in expensive coats, students in neatly pressed suits, college scouts in the back row with clipboards. Marcus stood behind the curtain, wearing a plain navy shirt and dark jeans. No flashy accessories, no last name pinned to his chest. Just him and his story. His name was called. He stepped onto the stage. The room fell quiet. He looked across the crowd and began, "My name is Marcus Blackwood. Some of you know me as the kid who wasted a golden ticket, who didn't care, who failed. They say I had everything. But I didn't have the one thing that mattered, someone who believed in me. Until she showed up." He paused. She wasn't my teacher, not officially. She wasn't paid to help me. She had no office, no authority, just a mop and a heart big enough to see through my anger. He scanned the audience. She taught me how to read between the lines, in books and in life. She taught me how to write, how to think, how to listen. She didn't just clean the floors of this school, she cleared the fog in my head. The air shifted. People leaned forward. But she was fired, silenced, because systems don't like it when someone from the bottom starts making a real difference, especially when that someone is a black woman who dared to teach a privileged white boy that his privilege meant nothing without purpose. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "So today I'm not speaking to impress you, I'm speaking to honor her." He held up the notebook. "She told me learning was transformation, that real winning isn't about being rich or powerful. It's about becoming someone worth remembering." Then his voice softened. "She might not be here right now, but she's in every word I'm saying. So what does it mean to win in life? It means waking up, letting go of your name, finding your truth, and using it to lift others." Silence, then one clap, then another, and then the room exploded into applause, a standing ovation, tears. Even some faculty were crying. From the back of the room, a woman with graying hair and quiet dignity wiped a tear and smiled. Nadine. She had come back quietly, just to see him shine. And Marcus, he wasn't a Blackwood that night. He was his own name. The video of his speech spread fast, first through students, then alumni, then the press. Billionaire's son credits black custodian for saving his life. That headline traveled further than any Blackwood Industries deal ever had. Nadine was offered a speaking engagement at a local college, then another, then a teaching position. Doors reopened, not because of a resume, but because of a truth that couldn't be ignored anymore. Marcus passed every class, not with pity, with purpose. He declined Ivy League offers and chose a small college focused on social justice and education. When asked why, he said, "Because I want to teach the way she taught me, and build the kind of place where no one has to ask to be seen." The sun was high over Boston the day Marcus knocked on a modest front porch, holding an envelope. Nadine opened the door, wearing a simple cardigan and a look of quiet surprise. "You didn't have to come all the way out here." "I did," Marcus replied, handing her the envelope. Inside, his high school diploma, his college acceptance letter, and something else. A handwritten proposal. "I want to start something," he said. "A center, a place where people can learn like I did, with honesty, with depth, without shame. I want to call it the Nadine Washington Institute." Nadine read the letter, then looked up, tears in her eyes. "Why me?" "Because everything I am now started with you." "Only if we do it together," she whispered. "Always." Months later, the Nadine Washington Institute opened its doors in a repurposed community center in the heart of the city. Classes, mentorship, late-night writing circles. Kids who had been written off now had a second chance. Nadine taught again, with chalk, with books, with freedom. Marcus ran the center's programs but never stopped learning, and the city took notice. Awards came, articles followed, but the real reward came when a student, 12 years old and struggling, handed Nadine a notebook and said, "This place made me feel smart for the first time." She cried that day, and so did Marcus. As for Isabella, she came quietly to the Institute's opening, stood in the back, watched her son speak about justice, humility, and healing. After the event, they met outside. "I didn't expect to cry," Isabella admitted. "I didn't expect to forgive you," Marcus said. They embraced, not as mother and heir, but as two people trying. Years passed. The institute grew. One evening, Marcus took the stage again, this time for a National Education Award. He held the microphone, paused, and said, "They said I failed at everything until I learned one thing that changed my life. That greatness doesn't come from being seen. It comes from seeing others. And sometimes the person who teaches you the most isn't in a suit. They're holding a mop, quoting philosophers while no one's listening. Her name is Nadine Washington, and she didn't save just my grades, she saved my soul." The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. In the front row, Nadine wiped away a tear and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." And Marcus mouthed back, "Thank you." Because that's what real learning looks like. Not a transaction, but a transformation. Not a grade, but a gift. Not an ending, but a beginning that never stops. The janitor became a professor again. The privileged boy became a teacher. And together, they proved that the most powerful lessons aren't taught in classrooms. They're shared between hearts brave enough to see each other's light. Stories like this remind us that greatness isn't about being seen. It's about seeing others. If this story touched your heart, don't let it be the last one you hear. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story that could inspire, challenge, or even change your life. Because here, every story carries a lesson worth remembering. Thanks for watching.